I never thought I'd be that guy posting a relationship meltdown on Reddit, but here we are. I need to get this shit off my chest before I explode. 4 years ago, I met Christine when her car broke down on the highway during a thunderstorm. I pulled over to help. She was soaked and freaking out about missing some important client meeting. I loaned her my jacket, drove her to her meeting, and waited around to take her back to her car after. We exchanged numbers and things just clicked between us. Fast forward to now, married 2 years, Christine 7 months pregnant, and me thinking we were actually happy. I'm not rolling in cash or anything, but I make decent money working with an engineering firm. We rent a nice place while I've been saving for a proper house. I didn't want to rush into some massive mortgage without a solid down payment. Always thought that was the responsible thing to do. Christine's family has never approved of me. Her mom Rebecca comes from money and married into more money. Their family owns half the commercial real estate downtown. Every family dinner has some passive-aggressive comment about my potential or how Christine could have done better. I tried everything to win them over, helping with home repairs, remembering every birthday, being the designated driver at family events. Nothing was ever good enough. Then there's Barrett, Christine's college ex. The one that got away according to her mom, comes from the same fancy background, works at some investment firm, drives an overpriced car. I've heard his name mentioned at least once at every family gathering, always with this weird tone from Rebecca. Barrett just bought a vacation home in Colorado. Barrett's company is doing so well. Barrett, Barrett, Barrett. I tried not to let it bother me. So last Saturday was our baby shower at her parents' house. I spent the entire morning setting up. Hanging decorations, arranging furniture, all that stuff. I wanted it to be perfect. About 50 people showed up. Family, friends, co-workers. The first hour was normal. Stupid games, food, Christine opening gifts while I kept track of who gave what. Then Rebecca grabbed a champagne glass and tapped it for everyone's attention. I was standing next to Christine, hand on her shoulder, feeling pretty good despite the usual cold shoulder from her family. That's when everything went to complete shit. Rebecca started with some nice grandma stuff, then suddenly turned to me with this disgusted look. She said my daughter's biggest mistake was marrying a pathetic loser who can't even buy her a proper house to raise my grandchild in. The room went completely silent. I felt like someone had punched me in the gut, but she wasn't done. She went on about how Barrett still comes over 3 times a week with pregnancy supplies and treats. At least he knows how to make my daughter happy. She actually winked at Christine when she said this. I looked at Christine, expecting her to be horrified, to defend me. Instead, she fucking giggled and said, "Mom's right. Yesterday he brought me flowers and chocolates while you were stuck at your dead-end job." My mind was spinning. Barrett, coming to our apartment while I'm at work? 3 times a week? This was the first I'd heard of it. Before I could process that bombshell, her sister Zoe chimed in from across the room, saying, "Remember when Barrett proposed with that gorgeous 3-carat diamond? Not like that Walmart special you're wearing, Chris." Then she pointed at Christine's engagement ring, the one I'd saved for 6 months to buy, the one Christine had cried over when I proposed. 50 pairs of eyes were suddenly on me. Some people looked uncomfortable, others were smirking. A few of Christine's college friends were openly laughing. I felt this rage burning through me like I've never felt before. My face was on fire. Fists clenched so tight my nails cut into my palms. But I didn't explode. I didn't storm out. I just smiled and said, well, we can't all inherit Daddy's money, can we? Then I walked to the bar, poured myself a double whiskey, and started mentally planning how I was going to destroy all of them. The rest of the shower was a blur. I played the dutiful husband, thanked everyone for coming, helped load gifts into cars. Christine tried to play it off as just a joke about an hour later, but I saw it in her eyes. She wasn't sorry about what she'd said. She was sorry she'd said it publicly. That night, I pretended everything was fine. Told her I understood it was just her mom being inappropriate and the champagne talking. Christine seemed relieved and fell asleep quickly. I waited until I heard her breathing steady, then carefully took her phone from the nightstand. What I found made my blood boil. Hundreds of texts between her and Barrett. Selfies of them together in our apartment. Messages about how much he missed her, how he wished the baby was his, how they should be together. And her responses were just as bad. Complaining about me, about how boring and cheap I am, how she sometimes regrets marrying me. The worst part? A text from just 2 days ago. Mom said William still has no clue. Let's keep it that way until after the baby comes. Then we can figure out next steps. Next steps? Next steps? I took screenshots of everything and emailed them to myself, then put her phone back. I barely slept, my mind racing with questions and plans. The next morning, I acted completely normal. Went to work, called a lawyer during my lunch break, started moving money to an account she couldn't access, contacted a private investigator. For a week, I gathered evidence, built my case, and prepared for war, all while playing the role of clueless husband. Then yesterday, I left for a business trip without telling her where I was going, turned off my phone for 8 hours while I met with my lawyer, and lined up a new place to stay. When I finally turned my phone back on, it exploded with notifications. 97 messages from Christine. Where are you? Why aren't you answering? Please, answer. I'm sorry, don't do this, the baby needs you. What did you find out? Who have you been talking to? That last one was particularly telling. She knows she's busted, but she doesn't know how much I know or what I'm planning to do about it. The thing is, I don't think it's even my baby. The timing works, barely. But now, I'm questioning everything. I've already scheduled a prenatal paternity test. If this child isn't mine, they're all going to regret what they did to me at that baby shower. And even if it is mine, Christine, her mother, and her sister are about to learn why you don't publicly humiliate a man who spent his life learning how to plan methodically. I know exactly how to dismantle their perfect little world, piece by piece. Update coming soon. This is just the beginning. Update 1. A lot has happened in the last week, and I've been collecting receipts like you wouldn't believe. After finding those texts on Christine's phone, I knew I couldn't just confront her without more proof. I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with before making any moves. So I rented an Airbnb across town, told work I needed some personal time, and went full detective mode. First thing I did was check our phone records. Turns out Christine and Barrett text or call each other like 20 times a day. 20. Some calls lasting over an hour, always during my work hours. And guess what? They've been in contact basically every day for the past 6 months. Not just since she got pregnant, way before that. I called my buddy Ryan, who helped me set up a cloud backup for our home security cameras a few months ago. I installed them after someone broke into our neighbor's place. Turns out I can access the footage remotely, and yep, Barrett has been coming over almost exactly 3 times a week, sometimes staying for hours. And my mother-in-law, Rebecca? She's been there too, usually once a week, often at the same time as Barrett. The cameras don't show inside the apartment, but they show Barrett bringing flowers, groceries, baby stuff, looking every bit the doting father-to-be. And the way Christine greets him at the door? Hugging, kissing. Not friendly pecks either. I reached out to my old college roommate, who's now a lawyer. Met him for beers and laid everything out. He said I need to protect myself ASAP, especially with the baby situation. He helped me draft a letter requesting a prenatal paternity test and advised me to start separating finances immediately. My parents called, after not hearing from me for a few days. I broke down and told them everything. My dad was furious. Mom started crying. They wanted to call Christine's family and confront them, but I convinced them to hold off. I needed to handle this my way. They're letting me stay with them if I need to. But I'm keeping the Airbnb for now. Keeping my location private gives me an advantage. I checked our joint account and noticed something weird. Christine has been transferring small amounts, like $200 to $300, to her personal account every month for almost a year. Nothing huge enough to raise red flags, but it adds up to thousands. When I checked our credit card statements, I found charges for restaurants and stores on days I was working, places I never went to. She's been using our joint money to wine and dine with Barrett. Our money that I earned while she cut back on work because of the pregnancy. My money paying for their dates. 3 days into my business trip, Christine's sister Zoe sent me this long paragraph about how I need to stop being so sensitive and get over myself, because Christine is hormonal and pregnant, and I should be more understanding. Yeah, understanding of her cheating with her ex. I didn't respond. Day 4, I created a separate bank account and transferred half our savings into it. Left the rest so she wouldn't be completely stranded, but protected myself, paid off our shared credit card, and removed myself as an authorized user. Yesterday, I finally decided to confront Christine. But strategically, I didn't reveal everything I knew. I just called her and said I needed some space after what happened at the baby shower. She immediately started crying, asking where I was, saying she was sorry about what her mom said. Notice she only apologized for her mom, not for her own comments or for, cheating. I asked her point blank, how often does Barrett come over while I'm at work? Dead silence, then panic. She started stammering about how he's just being supportive and they're just friends. And her mom asked him to check on her during the pregnancy. I said nothing, just let her dig herself deeper with lies. Then she asked how I knew about Barrett's visits. I didn't tell her about the security cameras, just said a neighbor mentioned seeing him. More silence. Then she admitted he comes by occasionally to drop off things for the baby. I asked if that's why she was hiding their texts from me. Another long pause. She asked what texts I was talking about. I told her I knew she and Barrett were in regular contact, and that her mom was facilitating their meetups. She started sobbing, saying I was invading her privacy by looking at her phone, that I was being paranoid, that pregnancy is stressful and she needed support from old friends. Then she pulled the classic, "This stress isn't good for the baby" card. I almost laughed. I told her I'd be home tomorrow to pack some more clothes and we'd talk then. She begged me not to leave her, suddenly changing her tune completely. The woman who giggled while her mother called me pathetic was now desperate for me to come home. This morning, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was Barrett. Somehow he got my number, probably from Christine's phone. He had the fucking audacity to tell me I was being unfair to Christine and that I owed it to her to work things out. Said they were just close friends and I was overreacting. I blocked him immediately. Then I found something that changed everything. I was looking through our cloud storage for some financial documents when I found a folder of photos Christine had backed up from her phone. Recent photos she'd taken at her OB appointments. Close-ups of ultrasound images. The dates on the images didn't match what she told me. According to the ultrasound dates, she's actually 8 months pregnant, not 7. Which means she got pregnant before she told me they were trying. Which means the timing doesn't work for the baby to be mine. We weren't even having sex that month because I was out of town for 2 weeks on a work project. I'm going back to our apartment tomorrow to get the rest of my stuff and confront her with everything I know. I've already spoken to my lawyer about next steps regarding the paternity test and possible divorce. I've documented everything. But here's the kicker. I found proof that Rebecca and Christine have been planning this for over a year. In the cloud backup of Christine's phone, there are emails between them discussing how to secure her future and make sure William never finds out. Rebecca actually wrote that Barrett is more suitable father material, and they just need to manage the situation carefully. So now I know it wasn't just a heat-of-the-moment comment at the baby shower. It was a calculated plan to humiliate me, use me financially, and pass off another man's child as mine. The rage I feel is beyond anything I've ever experienced. But I'm not exploding. I'm channeling it into the most thorough, devastating response possible. They want to play games with my life? They have no idea who they're dealing with. Next update coming after tomorrow's confrontation. And trust me, it's not going to go how they expect. Update 2. All right, Reddit. Buckle up because the last 48 hours have been insane. First of all, thanks for all the DMs and comments on my last posts. I'm trying to respond, but there's been so much happening. So I finally went back to our apartment 2 days ago like I said I would. I showed up around noon, figuring Christine would be home since she's cut back on work during the pregnancy. I used my key and walked in to find not just Christine, but her mother Rebecca, sitting at our kitchen table like they were plotting something. They both looked up like they'd seen a ghost. The apartment looked different. There were shopping bags everywhere with baby stuff I'd never seen before. Expensive-looking crib bedding, tiny designer clothes, a stroller that definitely cost more than what we'd talked about buying. On the counter was a plate of half-eaten pastries that I recognized from this fancy bakery across town that Barrett once mentioned in passing. Christine jumped up immediately and tried to hug me. I stepped back and she almost tripped. Rebecca stayed seated, watching me with this calculating look. Christine started crying, saying how worried she'd been, how much she missed me, how hormonal and stupid she'd been at the shower. Rebecca chimed in about how Christine had been absolutely distraught without me. I just stood there, taking it all in. Then I noticed Barrett's jacket hanging on our coat rack. The fucking audacity. I pointed to it and asked whose jacket that was, even though I knew. Christine turned pale, and Rebecca quickly jumped in, saying Barrett had dropped off some baby supplies that morning and must have forgotten his jacket. Christine nodded frantically, adding that he was just being supportive. I grabbed my suitcase from the closet and started packing more clothes. Christine followed me to the bedroom, begging me to talk to her. I turned around and asked her straight up when the baby was due. She said mid-September, like we'd always discussed. I pulled out my phone and showed her the ultrasound photos I'd found in our cloud storage, the ones with dates showing she was a month further along than she claimed. Her face just crumpled. She sat down on the bed and started sobbing for real, not the fake tears from before. Rebecca appeared in the doorway, asking what was going on. When Christine couldn't speak, I showed Rebecca the photos too. Rebecca's whole demeanor changed instantly. She went from fake concerned mother-in-law to ice-cold strategist in seconds. She told Christine to stop crying and pull herself together. Then she turned to me and said we needed to have an adult conversation about the situation. I laughed in her face. I told them both I knew everything. The planning, the emails between them, Barrett's regular visits, the money Christine had been moving to her personal account. I mentioned I'd already spoken to a lawyer about a prenatal paternity test and divorce options. Rebecca tried to take control of the situation, saying we could work something out that benefits everyone. She actually suggested that I could still be part of the baby's life, even if it wasn't biologically mine. That if I played my cards right, I could stay married to Christine, and they would make it worth my while. Christine just sat there, letting her mother negotiate her marriage and child like some kind of business deal. I realized then that Christine had always been under her mother's thumb. Rebecca saw me as poor but useful, someone who would provide stability while they did whatever they wanted behind my back. I told them I'd already scheduled a prenatal paternity test for the next day. Christine started panicking, saying those tests could harm the baby. They can't. I researched it thoroughly. Rebecca tried a different approach, suggesting we wait until after the birth. I refused to discuss it further. I finished packing, grabbed some important documents from our home office, and headed for the door. That's when Rebecca made her big mistake. She said if I pursued the paternity test or divorce, they would destroy me, that they had connections, and could make sure I never worked in this city again, that she would tell everyone I was abusive and abandoned my pregnant wife. I pulled out my phone and played the audio recording of our entire conversation, including her threats. Her face went white. I hadn't planned to record anything, but after finding those emails, I decided to document everything just in case. Best decision ever. I left them both stunned silent and went straight to my parents' house. Decided the Airbnb was an unnecessary expense now that everything was out in the open. My dad wanted to go confront them himself, but Mom calmed him down. They've been incredible support through all this. The next day, I went for the paternity test. It's a simple blood draw from Christine and me. Totally safe for the baby. Christine showed up looking exhausted with Zoe by her side instead of Rebecca. Zoe wouldn't even look at me. The technician took our samples and said results would be available in 3 to 5 business days. But I got lucky. Results came back in just 2 days, yesterday morning. And guess what? I am not the father. 0% probability of paternity. The baby is definitely not mine. I forwarded the results to my lawyer immediately. He filed for divorce that same afternoon on grounds of adultery, with the paternity test as evidence. Because we've only been married 2 years and have no kids together, since the baby isn't mine, it should be relatively straightforward. Then I did something that might seem petty but was actually strategic. I went to the family business where Rebecca works as the public face of their real estate company. I knew she had a big client meeting yesterday. I walked into the office and asked the receptionist if Rebecca was available. When she came out to the lobby with her clients, I handed her the paternity test results. Right there in front of everyone. She tried to usher me outside, but I said in a perfectly normal volume that I thought she'd want to know right away that Barrett is definitely the father of Christine's baby, just like they planned. Her clients looked confused, then uncomfortable. One of them asked if everything was okay. Rebecca tried to laugh it off, but I could see the panic in her eyes. I left without making a scene, but the damage was done. Rebecca's carefully crafted image was starting to crack. When I got back to my parents' house, I had dozens of messages. From Christine, from Rebecca, from Zoe, even from Barrett. Christine was begging for forgiveness, claiming she'd been confused and manipulated by her mother. Rebecca was threatening legal action for harassment and defamation. Zoe was suddenly apologetic, saying she'd had no idea about the paternity deception. Barrett was asking me to be reasonable and think about Christine's well-being. I ignored them all. Instead, I spent the evening with my parents and my oldest friend from high school who came over when he heard what happened. We grilled steaks in the backyard, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. This morning, I woke up to an email from Christine's father, a man who's barely spoken 10 words to me in 2 years. He asked to meet privately. I agreed, and we met at a diner near my parents' house. He looked tired and angry, but not at me. He told me Rebecca had kept him in the dark about most of this. He'd known Barrett was still in the picture as a friend, but had no idea about the paternity situation. He apologized for his wife and daughter's behavior and said he wouldn't contest anything in the divorce. Then he asked what it would take for me to handle this discreetly from now on. I told him it was too late for discretion. His wife and daughter had humiliated me in front of 50 people. They'd tried to trick me into raising another man's child while mocking me behind my back. They'd stolen from me, lied to me, and threatened me. I laid out exactly what I wanted. Full financial separation. Christine takes responsibility for all her personal debt. I keep our car, which is in my name anyway. And a written apology from both Christine and Rebecca acknowledging what they did. He seemed surprised I wasn't asking for money. I told him I didn't want their money. I wanted them to face consequences for once in their privileged lives. As I was leaving, he mentioned that several clients had called to cancel meetings with Rebecca after yesterday's scene at the office. That Barrett had apparently gotten cold feet about stepping up, now that everything was exposed. That Christine was having panic attacks about becoming a single mother. I just smiled and said that sounded like a them problem. I just got home from that meeting and my phone is blowing up again. Apparently, Rebecca has been calling everyone we know, trying to control the narrative. But I forwarded the paternity test results and some choice screenshots to our closest friends last night, so her damage control isn't working too well. My revenge isn't even finished yet. This was just phase 1. Phase 2 starts tomorrow, and it involves the small business loan that Rebecca personally guaranteed for Christine's event planning business last year, a loan that has my name on it too. My lawyer found a very interesting clause that Rebecca probably should have read more carefully before she decided to mess with my life. I'll update again soon. This is far from over. Final update. First, huge thanks to everyone who's been commenting and DMing support. Never expected this much attention, but it's honestly helped keep me focused. So remember that clause in Christine's business loan I mentioned? Turns out when Rebecca co-signed as a guarantor, there was a material change provision stating that if either party concealed information that would have affected the loan approval, the entire balance could be called due immediately. Since Christine used our marriage and stable family income, aka my income, as part of her business plan, and Rebecca vouched for this knowing the pregnancy situation, well, my lawyer had a field day. We sent a formal letter to the bank outlining the situation with proof of the paternity test and divorce filing. The bank called the loan 3 days ago. Christine's event planning business was already struggling. She'd been focused more on decorating the nursery than servicing clients lately. Now she and Rebecca have 14 days to come up with $87,000 or face collections. Rebecca called me screaming about how I was trying to destroy her daughter. I just let her rant while recording the whole thing. One-party consent state, perfectly legal. She accidentally admitted to even more than I already knew. Like how she'd been the one who suggested Christine reconnect with Barrett a year ago because she never thought I was good enough for her daughter. Apparently, Rebecca always resented me because I reminded her of her own humble beginnings. Plot twist. Rebecca wasn't born rich. She grew up poor, married into money, and has spent her whole life trying to erase her past. My middle-class values and practical approach to finances were a constant reminder of where she came from. She was terrified Christine would end up ordinary like me, instead of maintaining the wealthy facade Rebecca had built. The next day, Christine texted asking to meet. I agreed to a public place, a coffee shop near my parents' house. She showed up looking terrible, like she hadn't slept in days. Her whole confident rich girl vibe was gone. She tried to convince me to call off the bank stuff because it would hurt innocent people, meaning her and the baby. I just stared at her until she stopped talking. Then I pulled out a folder with printouts of all her texts with Barrett and her mom. I asked her if she remembered telling Barrett that I was too boring and practical for her, if she remembered laughing about how I worked overtime to save for a house while she was spending afternoons with him, if she remembered planning with her mother to keep me in the dark until after the baby was born so they could figure out next steps. She started crying, saying she never meant to hurt me, that she got caught between her mother's expectations and her own confusion, that she did care about me but got swept up in Barrett's promises and her mother's pressure, that she'd made a horrible mistake and would do anything to fix it. I just shook my head and told her to grow up and take responsibility for once. Then I handed her divorce papers my lawyer had prepared, told her she could sign them now and I'd tell the bank I believed she was misled by her mother, partially true, or she could fight it, and I'd make sure every detail of their deception became public. She signed them right there in the coffee shop. The next development was unexpected. Barrett showed up at my parents' house yesterday. My dad answered the door and immediately called me downstairs. Barrett was standing there looking uncomfortable, shifting from foot to foot like a kid caught stealing cookies. He said Rebecca had been pressuring him for months to step up with Christine, promising financial support from the family if he played along, that he wasn't ready to be a father but felt trapped between Rebecca's manipulation and Christine's expectations. He actually apologized for his part in everything, saying he'd been a coward. I asked why he was telling me this now. Turns out Rebecca had suddenly cut him off, blaming him for ruining everything, when he balked at marrying Christine right away. She expected him to propose immediately after my divorce was filed, to save Christine's reputation. When he hesitated, Rebecca threatened to tell his conservative family and employers about the baby situation unless he fixed this mess. Instead, he went to Christine's dad, who apparently told him the truth about Rebecca's background and her obsession with status. Barrett realized he was being played just like I had been. I almost felt sorry for the guy. Almost. I told him his problems with Rebecca weren't my concern, but I appreciated the information. After he left, I forwarded our doorbell camera footage of our conversation to Christine. Petty? Maybe? Satisfying? Absolutely. Last night was when everything really imploded for them. I was having dinner with my college roommate when my phone started blowing up with notifications. Turns out Christine's sister Zoe had gotten into a huge public fight with Rebecca at some charity event. According to mutual friends who witnessed it, Zoe was furious that Rebecca had dragged their family's reputation through the mud with her schemes. Apparently, several of the family's business associates were now distancing themselves after hearing rumors about the baby drama. One of Zoe's husband's clients had pulled a major account, citing concerns about family stability. Zoe blamed Rebecca for putting status and control over common sense and basic decency. The argument got so heated that security asked them to leave. Rebecca slapped Zoe in front of everyone, and Zoe responded by announcing to the entire room that her mother was a social climbing fraud who grew up in a trailer park. Not exactly the image Rebecca had cultivated all these years. This morning, Christine's dad called to tell me the divorce papers were being processed without contest. He also mentioned that Rebecca had moved out of their house temporarily to let things cool down. He sounded exhausted but relieved in a way. I asked about the loan situation, and he said he'd cover it himself to protect Christine, but Rebecca was on her own for any financial consequences. Apparently, this whole mess had been a wake-up call about how toxic his wife's influence had been on their family. As for Barrett, he's apparently ghosted everyone. According to Christine's latest desperate text, he's blocked her number and told mutual friends he's taking a job opportunity overseas. So much for stepping up as a father. The baby's due in about 4 weeks, and honestly, I feel nothing about it now. Not anger, not sadness, just nothing. It's not my child, not my problem. Christine made her choices. I finally got the last of my stuff from our apartment yesterday. Christine wasn't there. She's temporarily moved in with a cousin since her dad won't let her stay at the family home while Rebecca is still in the doghouse. The place already looked different, half-packed boxes everywhere, the expensive baby stuff gone, probably returned for refunds to help with the loan. I found my old hoodie from college that Christine used to wear all the time. Seemed like a lifetime ago when that meant something. I left it on the counter with my house key. As I was driving away, I realized I didn't feel the burning rage anymore. I didn't feel the need to keep pushing for more revenge. They'd all imploded quite effectively on their own once the truth came out. Rebecca lost the status she craved. Christine lost both men she was trying to juggle and her business. Barrett lost, well, nothing really, except the headache of Rebecca's manipulation. But he'll have child support to deal with soon enough. I've been staying with my parents but just signed a lease on a new apartment across town. Got a call about a promotion at work that would mean more money and less overtime. The irony isn't lost on me. My friends have been incredible, checking in daily and making sure I get out of the house. Yesterday, I ran into one of the guests from the baby shower while grabbing lunch. She awkwardly mentioned how uncomfortable everyone had been during Rebecca's toast, how many people had reached out to me afterward but didn't know what to say. Turns out most people saw through Rebecca's bullshit even then. Would have been nice if someone had said something at the time, but whatever. So that's it, Reddit. The divorce will be final in a few months. The loan situation is forcing Christine and Rebecca to face real consequences for once. Their perfect family image is in tatters. And I'm finally free of all of them. Sometimes the best revenge isn't some elaborate scheme. It's just letting terrible people face the natural consequences of their actions while you walk away to build something better.